This is John's House, a daily place for real conversation about Frederick. From the decisions that affect your neighborhood to the events, nonprofits, restaurants, and local leaders that make this community move. Local, regional, national, and always connected to home. Come on in. John's House starts now.
Hey, welcome to your Monday. It is a Monday. Pretty plain and simple. Weather okay today. Might have a little bit of rain here and there. Temperatures are still down. We'll take the overcast skies for this time of year again. Just happy that it's not 95 with 95% humidity. Now, of course, what we know, we've been talking about it for the last week and a half or so. The Maryland primary elections are coming your way tomorrow. So don't forget to get out and vote. Now, there's been a pretty heavy frustration among Democrats. And we're going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. But before we do that, I want to remind you of all the opportunities you have here on the Everything Frederick Live podcast network, including the opportunity to have your own podcast. You might look at us, those of us who do the other podcasts, I can do that. Okay. And maybe you have a great idea that nobody's touched on. Maybe you want to do a podcast about cars and how to fix them. Or maybe you want to do podcasts on how to cook, think about all the cooking shows that started off with something small like that in a local community and then grew to the Food Network. And just a couple of ideas off the top of my head. But reach out to us here at Everything Frederick Live. You can either add your comments to any of the shows. You can hit Danny up on the Good Morning Frederick program on that podcast, which comes on just before mine gets underway, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. Or you can hit me up directly at rockthewave13@gmail.com. By the way, I'm John Hunt, in case you didn't catch that before. Maryland primary elections, again, coming your way tomorrow. Now, yesterday on Fox News Sunday, I give credit to Fox News for, bringing this story to light again. But Lindy Lee is a former Democrat. People say that word wrong. Democratic means what we are as a nation. Supposedly, we're Democratic, but the Democrat Party is different than that. So when you use that term, and I even slip into it as well, just know that you mean Democrat. So former Democrat fundraising manager, Lindy Lee, has written a book. Now, the crazy thing about this book is she was raising millions of dollars for the party. Raising millions of dollars for the entire party until she and others were told to stop fundraising for any candidate other than Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Now, I've talked about this before, the fact that there were 28 different candidates that wanted to run, or 27 that wanted to run against the 28th candidate, Joe Biden. And many of them were more center than most Democrats, more even, if you will, about their politics than the far left that we have kind of running the show in the Democratic Party right now. Now, even last week, the day before the Obama Library was open, we did a story on the fact that Hillary stepped forward and said, I think it was a mistake that because we knew that Joe Biden wasn't competent to be president, we knew this. And we probably shouldn't have let him run as a party. We probably should have gone through the full process in the debates rather than coronating, as I like to say, Joe Biden and his rise to his presidency and beating Donald Trump on I guess, Trump 2 out of Trump 3 runs for president. Now, of course, Trump did beat Hillary the first time around, and Hillary also said, well, anybody would have been better than. But really? I mean, no matter what you think about Donald Trump, and I'm not a far right Republican. I've stated it before, I'm a centrist. So no matter what you think about this current president, and he's not always presidential, again, I've stated that as well. But the reality is we ran a nation for 4 years through the end of Afghanistan, through COVID, millions of people dying in the United States, despite the other things we learned about COVID, or we are now learning about COVID, that the mainstream media and the Democrats don't want to talk about. Again, these are ways we have to be more transparent. We've talked about that in the shows. But Lindy Lee, again, the former Democratic fundraising manager, has written a book called Unburdened. Now, she has now switched her party's affiliation over the fact that the DNC bowed down and allowed Joe Biden to run for president in 2020. So we have some video, and again, credit to Fox News Sunday for the video from Lindy Lee, kind of breaking the story down and explaining what happened while she was collecting money for the Democratic Party.
Donors, absolutely without a single exception, they are so angry and upset the state of the party. They think the party is in complete shambles, and that's totally right. I actually had a donor call me at 3:30 a.m. just a few days ago complaining about how there's no leadership. The party is completely rudderless, and they basically elected 50% of the people who got us into this mess. I'm no longer part of that scene, but I don't know how they're going to get out of this wilderness. The leadership that they elected, they're so tone deaf. Their DNC vice chair is saying that we need to abolish ICE, that we need to defund police, and he's against the Second Amendment. The American people showed in November that this is not the agenda that they want. In 2004, Obama was already getting ready to run for president in 2008. This time, there's no one on the horizon who has that level of talent and ability to inspire. There just simply isn't. I don't see it. Do you?
And Lindy said in her Fox interview that Americans, including most Democrats, not all, when they're not listening to the talking heads, when they're not spending all their time looking on social media, Lindy said in the Fox interview that Americans and Democrats want common sense policies, that most lean to the center, whether it's the right center or the left center, that most actually do. She believes that from talking to donors. But sometimes in the last election, it was not about leaning right or left. It was about not wanting one person to be president. It wasn't about all the issues. It wasn't even about some of President Trump's issues. It was just about the fact that they did not want to see Trump in office by any means necessary. So the problem now within the Democrat Party is that they are too deep in the woke community, that it's go woke or go broke, as she likes to say. So we will turn this interview back over to Lindy, and we have more video of her letting us know what happened. And that video is on its way up. There we go.
I actually think a lot of these people, it's their religion. It's their God. Woke is their God. You know, this like trans and woke insanity, they're enthralled by it. And, you know, go woke, but go broke. We've seen that happen so many times. And companies are running as fast as they can away from this toxic agenda. Yet the Democratic Party is doubling down time and time again on this honestly, it's a gender hysteria. It's almost like a social contagion. And it's just, this is not what Americans want. They want common sense policies. They don't want men and women's sports. They want men to be men and women to be women, and for women to be able to thrive without having to fear that a biological man, is going to come into their sport and trounce them. You never hear about women and men's sports. There's a reason why. There's an obvious gender disparity, and to argue otherwise is just very disingenuous. But over the past 5-10 years, the party has become like hijacked by this ideology.
And, there are large portions of what she said that is correct. You may agree or disagree with some portions of that. But the reality is, you saw a lot of protests and, people burning cars and craziness. I lived in Portland for a little bit. And during the time living out there, every other day they were burning down businesses. Minnesota, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City, Washington, D.C. All of this was because of the woke policies that the Democrat Party and their puppet president, Joe Biden, wanted to put in place. So the other part of this is, you saw all those protests and you're wondering, where did all those people come from? Who is going to go out in public, on screen, on television, and spout so loudly against anything for that matter, especially celebrities? And we're now, again, learning more about the truth that these celebrities, the Beyoncés of the world and a number of other celebrities, were actually paid cash money by the Democratic National Committee. So we have video on her explaining that situation as well.
Let's be very clear. All the celebrities, including Beyonce and her mom, they lied about not getting paid. All of their production companies were compensated. And don't tell me that they had no choice. My family and I, we donated churches, and we donated an entire church to the campaign and buildings as well. And that was called an in-kind contribution. We covered all the rent and all the property costs. We paid for it out of pocket. That's what Beyonce and Oprah and Cardi B and Christina Aguilera, they could have done the same thing as well. They could have covered the labor costs as my family did, but they chose to be reimbursed by the Harris campaign. They chose to take money away from the American people. And in terms of Beyonce not performing, I believe that the campaign used that to generate attention and a publicity for their event, even knowing that Beyonce would not perform, because they sure as heck knew that she would not deliver. And that didn't happen once, that happened twice. The first time was at the convention. The second time was in Houston, Texas, 11 days before the end of the campaign.
Well, thanks again to Fox News Sunday for allowing us to use some of that video. Lindy Lee, again, she is the former Democrat fundraising manager, and she's written a new book called Unburdened, which basically her unburdening herself and her conscience, because she admitted she was part of what was going on. She was a part of what she was told to do by the Democratic National Committee, and she did go along with it and realized after the fact, I think what I did was wrong. And so she wrote a book about the entire run for president for Joe Biden in 2020, despite the fact that 90% of the party, and I would say 99% of the party, absolutely knew that Joe Biden was incompetent even before the election, and just, like Moses in the Ten Commandments, just parted the Red Sea and said, okay, Joe Biden's going to walk through and we're going to make him our nominee. Now, if you're a Democrat, you've got to be angry because you got destroyed by a guy who's not presidential. And whether you love Trump or you don't love Trump, I would say at least 50% of the other candidates you had on the stage could have beaten Donald Trump, even if it was just on a we don't want Trump. Well, so many people didn't want Biden either. And it goes also back to the thing I've talked about a few times on John's House. If you're an independent, that would have been a great year for you to step up and vote independent. The 30 to 35% of you who claim on polls and in public when you're afraid to stand up to whatever your beliefs are, to say, I'm an independent, I'm a centrist, I am going to vote for the independent party. Whether it's the Green Party. In California, it's the smoke in the Green Party, but that's another story altogether. But, anywhere else, think about it. No matter what the other party is, what is this, the Maryland Forward Party I keep getting emails from? There's a number of other options for you to choose from. And if neither candidate gives you what you want, go to the polls anyways. Go to the polls anyways and do one of two things. At least vote for the local elections, which affect you directly, like here tomorrow in Frederick. Even if you're an independent, you still get to vote for school board and some other positions that are nonpartisan. So don't skip the polls because you're so frustrated with what we just reported to you, or so frustrated that neither candidate gives you what you want. As the Rolling Stone said, we can't always get what we want, but you try sometimes, you get what you need, right? And that's kind of the same thing in politics if you think about it. No candidate in any party is ever, I've never seen it, and I was a political science major in college. I have never seen a candidate that gave me everything that I would want if I was in office, or everything exactly as I would want it. It doesn't work that way in America. Politics are hard. Being a democratic society is hard. You have to work for it. It is not something, they say, well, we're Americans, it's handed to us. Well, yes, we have a constitution, and yes, the Constitution says we have these things, but we still have to do the work. We still have to follow the process. And one of the things about following the process, if you want to see real change, those of you who claim to be independents, if you want to see real change, go to the polls and vote for one of the other candidates if you don't like the choices you have. And if you don't like any of those candidates, write yourself in, write Mickey Mouse in, write, I keep saying Joe Walsh because, in the 70s and 80s, he liked to get stoned and run for president. I don't care if you vote for Ted Nugent, or I don't care if you vote for Beyonce. It doesn't matter. First off, they're not going to win. But if enough people do that, it will show that change is needed. And I do believe that. Do I think it's going to happen in my lifetime? Probably not. Probably not. I might never see the result of this action. And then there's also getting more of the next generations involved in politics, both local and national. And if some of that happens, some of their beliefs will come forward, because you know what? Those of us who are older and will do Social Security soon or whatever, we are, I don't want to say on the downside, because there's still plenty of cool things that we can do as we get older. But the reality is, this is your country. Think about it. Just stop for a second and just open your mind. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Or as George Clinton said, free your mind and your ass will follow. But too many music references today, I think, here on the Political Show. I think it is time to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Maryland primary election, which is coming your way tomorrow, in better detail, so you know what to do when you go to the polls. So we'll be back on John's House.
Sponsored by A&S Construction is a local and award-winning woman and minority-owned business located right here in Frederick, servicing Frederick County and surrounding areas. A&S Construction specialize in roofing and siding, windows and gutters, and they can even build you a new patio or deck. Call 301-703-2157 or email info@ansconstruction.net. You can get $750 off any roof or siding replacement, or $50 off any roof repairs. Just tell Sandra that Danny sent you. Sponsored by Intense Barbecue.
Family-owned barbecue food truck and catering company cooking in small batches to ensure that the food is the freshest it can be. Intense Barbecue can cater your events, and they do any kind of food. It doesn't have to be barbecue. Find them at SEBBQ.com and satisfy your meat tooth.
There it is. Satisfy your meat. And every time I see that commercial, man, the barbecue over the French fries. I had a friend on the West Coast who used to make, and I think they do this at the Keys games. And I tried it maybe last year or the year before. I can't remember when. But a barbecue sundae, which is basically barbecue and some barbecue sauce and a little dark gravy over mashed potatoes. Makes my mouth water. Makes me getting hungry just thinking about it. Anyways, or as the old Popeyes commercials used to say, make my mouth happy. I don't know. Again, so many of you are not old enough to remember those commercials. But primary election tomorrow. It's already here. We talked about it for the last 10 days or so as we were winding down. Had some candidates make the visit to the studio. More of you had opportunities, by the way. Candidates. We reached out to just about every candidate that we could find that actually had a website that was running for an office. And a number of you were kind enough to join the show, but more of you had that opportunity, and it was a free opportunity, and you let it get away from you. So in the future, think about that for the next election. You have the opportunity both on Good Morning Frederick and John's House to be part of the action. And again, if you'd like to have your own podcast, if you think you can do this better than we can, maybe you can. And, you know, it would be a lot of fun to see. We'd love to have you. But remember, it takes work. Like we were just talking about, the Democratic condition takes work. To be an American takes work. Same thing. You want to build a podcast? Think about, you know, waking up on a Monday morning and saying, oh, I don't have a show prepared. Let me do something. Well, first do your homework and get it ready in advance. But doing that every day, doing the podcast, just coming in and doing the podcast, that's probably the simplest part of the process. Because I have people in the background. Today, Dougie's doing the job, trying to make me look okay on the screen and make sure that everything is in line so that I can bring you John's House. So the Maryland primary election, again, tomorrow. If you want details, go to electionsmaryland.gov. Electionsmaryland.gov, G-O-V. Early voting is pretty much done. So go to one of these locations tomorrow and drop off your ballot from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The 5 Frederick County, not all Frederick City, Frederick County locations are as followed. The Trinity Rec Center at 6040 New Design Road in Frederick. The Urbana Regional Library at 9020 Amelung, A-M-E-L-U-N-G Street in Frederick. The Thurmont Regional Library at 76 East Moser Road in Thurmont. Middletown Volunteer Fire Department, 1 Fireman's Lane in Middletown. And the Libertytown Volunteer Fire Department at 12027 South Street in Libertytown. So you have 5 places to vote and no reason not to vote. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's a law that, you know, if you ask, all right, it should be corporate policy at the very least for most companies. But if you ask to go vote or say, hey, I'm going to go vote at lunch, can I have an extra 15 minutes just in case? Your boss is 99% is going to let you do it. It's going to be okay. Unless you're up against some hard deadline, you should be good to go. So I can't see any excuse not to go. And you can't say anything about the SAVE Act. It's not in place yet. It's been not passed by the Senate. The House has passed multiple times. So anybody who's worried about having the right ID to vote, you just got to prove you are who you say you are. You just need one of these IDs to vote. A Maryland driver's license, ID card, change of address card, paycheck with your address on it, a bank statement with your address on it, utility bill with your address on it, prove you're in the right district, and any government document with your name and address. So not all of them, you even have to have pictures. Now, the preferred form is to have your voter registration card and your Maryland ID, whether it's a driver's license or the picture ID because you don't drive. Because think about it, voting is important in a democracy. And so is going to the bank and getting your money, right? When you go to the bank and get your money, what do they do when you get to the teller? What's the first thing they ask? They're not saying, hey, Mr. Jones, I know you are who you say you are. No matter how long you've gone to the bank, you still have to show the ID because it's on camera. Okay? That's how it works. Or if you want to get government benefits, you're going for Social Security, go to the Social Security office. Maybe you're unemployed, go to the unemployment office. What are they going to ask you for? They're going to ask you for legal ID. At the very least, they're going to ask you for a legal ID. Okay? And now they're not asking you for your Social Security card when you go to the voting booth. If they do sometimes when you go to the bank or you want to make an investment or you want to, you want to get a government job or get a job, any job. You can get a job cutting grass for a landscaper, which are much needed in our area. I've been driving around lately and too many people didn't cut their grass. I get it. It's not easy. So, no matter what your job is, whether it's working at the bank or as a landscaper or owning your own company and going to the bank and setting up your bank account, what do you need? You need legal IDs, multiple. But to vote, they want to make it so you don't need ID. You don't need to prove you are who you say you are to be allowed to vote. Come on. So the SAVE Act still needs to be passed by the Senate. They're the ones that are blocking it up. And again, you need to use multiple IDs to do anything else, but not to vote in America. And this, a lot of people will say, the people who argue against it, married women, rural Americans, young voters, people of color, the military, and low-income Americans are blocked from voting if that's the case. Do any of those people go to the bank? Think about what we just talked about. They do. And if it's a married woman and you just, there are some things that maybe need to be amended in the bill. For example, if you just got married and you haven't changed your ID yet, or maybe you moved and you haven't changed your address yet, well, that can be easily solved by the marriage license. Bring that with you to prove that you got married, or your change of address card. Also, when you change your address, you want to make sure you still get your mail right. Well, what do you get? You go to the post office and you get a change of address card. And you go to the DMV and you get one of those little paper cards that they give you with your driver's license. You don't always get the new picture driver's ID. Maybe they've changed that since the last time I've gotten my driver's license updated. I think mine's good till 2029, so I got a couple more years. But again, they give you those change of ID cards. So there's no reason why it does not have anything to do with any of the, does it make it a little bit harder? Maybe. But again, we live in a democracy with a constitution. Following it isn't always easy. It isn't. So just think about that the next time you try to argue against voter ID. Again, tomorrow, the big day, whether you're a Republican or you are a Democrat, you have the opportunity to do your civic duty and get out and vote. Again, no matter what party you vote for, or if you're an independent, there's no reason not to go to the polls tomorrow. We're going to keep the show a little bit tight today. A lot going on. Also, the first day of starting at 10 o'clock. We've been doing 10:30 the previous 2 weeks of the show. So we're on show number 11 today. Hard to believe. I feel, with the guys around here, I kind of feel like I've been around for a year. But the reality is this is just show number 11, week 3, as we kick this thing off. Want to remind you about tons of other podcasts. You can go to the Everything Frederick Live Network on YouTube, and you can find them. And as long as Facebook is up and running properly, I think we had a day last week where there were some issues on Facebook, you'll be able to catch the show on Facebook live, or you can watch it anytime on YouTube. Go to YouTube and either look up John's House or look up Everything Frederick Live, and it will point you to any of the podcasts, any of the previous podcasts, whether they were one of the first ones that had a couple of people watching. And by the way, don't just trust the numbers on YouTube. You see a number and it'll say, because we have it split up into multiple different areas, and you can watch the show in many different places. So you might see it says 37 watchers on one particular spot. But for example, on Facebook, we learned over the last, 21 to 30 days, over 89,000 people have watched podcasts, not just my shows, but podcasts all across the Everything Frederick Live podcast network. Over 89,000 views. That's more than pretty much anybody in Frederick. So if you're thinking about advertising, you're thinking about starting a podcast, you want to join us on the show, this is a place to get your word out. And if you think about advertising, now, yes, I'm kind of giving you a sales pitch, but I want to explain how it works. Because even with advertising, you're playing an ad, you hear an ad when you're driving in your car, for example. And, you heard that ad, but you can't go back and play the ad again. You can't go back and listen to that terrestrial radio show again. You can't. It doesn't work like that. But the cool thing about the Everything Frederick Live podcast network and all of the podcasts, all of the 14 podcasts that are on this network, including John's House right now and Frederick Sports, which comes your way at 4:00, you can go back anytime and you can watch any of the content. So you can watch it multiple times, and guess what? You're going to see the ads again. So that's, if you're a business owner and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if you have the people following that, think about it. Not only can your show be watched once and not exactly at that time. My show comes now on at 10 o'clock. That doesn't mean you have to tune in at 10 o'clock. You want to watch my show at 2 o'clock in the morning? You can do it. So you have multiple opportunities to watch the show. And guess what, advertisers? See the ad, see the marketing, see you on the show, sitting in the chair right next to me, talking about your business. Again, many different opportunities to help you get your message out, and many different podcasts that you have to choose from, and a lot more cost effective as well. So let me wrap the show up. I appreciate you hanging out with me on a Monday. We'll do it again tomorrow, but later on today, 4:00, we'll have Frederick Sports, the Keys. Again, they got their wrap up, more World Cup action. The Mystics beat the Liberty and Minnesota over the weekend. Back-to-back days against two top 3 teams. So they're starting to come around. And, of course, the Nationals and the Orioles and all of our local and regional sports coming your way today at 4:00 on Frederick Sports. Thanks again for hanging out with me, as I said, and I appreciate you. Don't forget to vote tomorrow. This has been John's House.
Thanks for stopping by John's House. Make sure you share, like, and comment, because this conversation is better when Frederick is part of it. Tune in every weekday for more local stories, real issues, community voices, and the people helping shape Frederick. We'll see you next time.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network. Your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.